Hello, welcome back to Piers Rocks. Last time we looked at plugins on One ROM, the most flexible replacement ROM for your retro system. Today we're going to look at some more plugins, including one that allows the Commodore 64 to rewrite its own ROM. One ROM is a microcontroller based replacement ROM for nearly every retro system from the late 1970s through the 1980s into the 1990s. While One ROM is serving data to the retro system, it actually has two spare CPU cores just lying around doing nothing. One ROM's plugins make use of these spare CPU cores. In the last video, I showed a full USB stack implementation running as a One ROM plugin. This runs the USB stack while One ROM is actually serving bytes, allowing you to manage and modify One ROM while it's running. In this video, I wanted to give you some more examples of what One ROM plugins allow you to do. You're looking at my much abused Commodore 64, and it has three One ROMs installed: the basic ROM on the left, the Kernal ROM in the middle, and the Character ROM on the right hand side. The LED is off on the Kernal ROM, but it's still serving ROM bytes, and we can tell that it's serving ROM bytes because the cursor is blinking. That means the CPU is running, and it's running kernel code. Now you can see there's nothing else attached to these One ROMs. They're only plugged into the Commodore 64. There's no USB cables, nothing else plugged into these. That means the only way that anything can talk to these ROMs is the Commodore 64 talking to them via their address, data and chip select lines. So the only way the Commodore 64 can talk to this kernel ROM is by setting an address on the address lines, activating the chip select line, and then reading the byte that One ROM is serving back from the data lines. Now with any Commodore 64 you can issue the command sys64738. And this will perform a soft reset of the Commodore 64. What it does here is it executes the initialization code that's located on the kernel ROM. And it initializes all the peripherals, and it loads this banner from the ROM and displays it on the screen. So I'll just show you what that looks like now. So the Commodore 64 is reset, the banner has reloaded, and it's redisplayed it on screen. Now I have a small program on the 1541 attached to this Commodore 64, which is called Modify Kernal. And this does what it sounds like. It causes the Commodore 64 to modify its own kernel ROM. So I'll load this in. It's really quick because it's a 78-byte program. And it's mostly machine code. There's a small basic stub. Now, when I run this, the Commodore 64 is actually going to modify the ROM located on One ROM. So I run it, and it's already done. You can see the LED has now come on. That's to signify that the kernel has been modified. And we've got an output from the small program. So now I'm going to reset the Commodore 64 using that soft reset command again, and this is going to cause the kernel to reload the banner from ROM and redisplay it on screen. This time we get a different banner. That's because the Commodore 64 just modified its own ROM. Here's another plugin demonstration, this time on the Character ROM on the right hand side here. The way that these characters get displayed on the screen is the characters that should be displayed stored in the Commodore 64's RAM, and the VIC-II video chip is constantly reading the RAM and then looking up the character data associated with the characters in each slot from the Character ROM. This plugin on the Character ROM is watching what the VIC-II is actually querying, and that means it can detect what characters are actually displayed on the screen. I'll show you by entering a greater than sign. Keep an eye on the status LED on the Character ROM. Comes on when I press the greater than sign. If I get rid of that and I press a question mark, it goes off. See that again? Greater than turns on, question mark, it goes off. Just clear the screen, show you again. Greater than sign goes on, question mark, it goes off. So this is the code for the Character ROM plugin that we were just looking at, and it's a grand total of 110 lines of C code. A lot of it's comments because it's meant to be an example. The first thing this does is it includes the plugin API header file, which it will need to use plugin API functions. The next thing it does is it defines a header that will appear at the beginning of the plugin binary. When it's stored on flash, One ROM can read that header and check that yes, it really is a plugin. One ROM can locate its entry point, can see what version it is, and also can check that One ROM itself is of the right version and therefore has support for the APIs this plugin uses. The next thing the plugin does is it defines a ring buffer. So this is a ring buffer and it's sized at 64 entries in this plugin. And this ring buffer is going to be used to store all of the address reads that the VIC-II chip is doing. As they come in, they're going to be stuffed in that ring buffer by a combination of the RP2350's programmable input-output state machines, PIOs, and also DMA, direct memory access. This plugin is then going to pull that information out of the ring buffer and compare it live with the characters that it's looking for. And if it matches the characters that it's looking for, then it's going to turn the status LED on or turn the status LED off. And you can see next we define what those characters actually are, and they're the greater than and question mark signs that I showed you in the demo. Scrolling on down, the next code is the main entry point and only function in this plugin. The first thing it's doing is it's retrieving the functions that it needs to use from the plugin framework. So these are functions that are located in the core One ROM firmware and provide capabilities that plugins may find useful. The next thing it does is it sets the status LED as off, just so it starts with the status LED off. The next thing the plugin does is it sets up the address monitoring capability within the core firmware. So this is configuring the PIO state machines and also the DMA channel to fill the ring buffer, although it's not been started yet. This is just setting up that capability. Now the next thing that the plugin does here is it's actually doing some pre-calculation of the addresses that it needs to look for from the VIC-II chip accessing the character ROM. The VIC-II chip does not just access an address indicated by the screen code of the character that it needs to draw. It actually shifts it left by 3 bits and uses the 3 low bits as a row index into each of the lines of the character. On a Commodore 64, characters are 8 lines, and therefore it uses those bottom 3 bits for the line. So the plugin is actually going to need to look for that address shifted left by 3 bits. Also, the way that the address monitoring capability works is it's just going to pull in the state of the address GPIOs from the RP2350 microcontroller and stick that into the ring buffer. That isn't actually the logical address that the Commodore 64 or the VIC-II chip is signaling. If you've watched some previous videos about One ROM, you may remember that One ROM actually jumbles up all of the different ROM lines before connecting them into the Raspberry Pi's GPIO pins. That means that when those GPIOs are read, it's actually reading a mangled form of the address. We don't really have time in a loop where we're running at line rate with the VIC-II chip reading an address line every microsecond to do a demangling step in the middle of that algorithm. So we pre-map the addresses that we're looking to how they will look when they're retrieved directly from the GPIOs. And this is done here using the remap address function, which again is retrieved from the core firmware and available for plugins to use. Now the next step, performed by these 3 lines of code, is effectively starting the address monitor PIOs and DMAs. So at this point we now start filling up the ring buffer with address reads from the VIC-II chip. So this gives us every single character that's on the screen on the Commodore 64. The code then goes into an infinite while loop, i.e. it runs forever, and what it's doing is it's checking whether there's a new address in its ring buffer to process. If there is, it reads that address in. It attempts to match the address with one of the 2 values that it pre-computed, either to turn the status LED on or status LED off. And if it matches, then it actually applies that change to the status LED, and then it waits all over again. So this is all the code that it takes for a One ROM plugin to monitor every single address access of the ROM that One ROM is serving. Now we're looking at the code for the plugin that allows the Commodore 64 to rewrite its own ROM. And you can see the beginning of this looks very, very similar. We're defining a ring buffer, a header for the plugin, and including the plugin API header file. The next thing we're doing is we're defining a knock sequence. And this is a sequence of address reads that the plugin is looking for. So if the addresses are read that map to these ASCII characters, now I forget what ASCII character an O is, but I think it might be something like OX4F. if we get an address read for the address on one ROM 004F, then the algorithm down below is going to match that as an O. Then if it sees an address associated with the N character, it's going to match that, and so on. So if it gets address reads for these addresses in order, then it's going to reprogram the ROM that's stored on itself. Then you can see the new banner that it's going to write into the character ROM. That's defined in the C code here, and the offset from the beginning of the kernel ROM that needs to be updated. Now this is a very simple example. It's including within the plugin itself how the kernel ROM should be modified, but this approach can be extended after receiving the knock sequence to receive maybe a location and then a set of bytes streamed directly from the retro system that should be updated in the ROM image stored on one ROM. Then we get down to the main entry point, and again, first thing it's doing is it's grabbing a bunch of API functions from the core firmware that it's going to need to make use of. We initially set the status LED off. We set up the address monitoring capability within the core firmware. Now the core firmware itself also provides a helper function which allows you to define your own knock sequence. You saw mine up above was one ROM exclamation mark. You can define whatever you like. It also provides an API function to do the knock detection for you and only return back to your plugin once that knock sequence has been detected. So here we're initializing the knock sequence. We're saying this is the knock sequence that we want to look for. Then we start the address monitor, and then we're waiting for that knock sequence. And that's all the plugin has to do to detect any arbitrary string of address reads. Once that's been received, this function will return, and then the plugin calls the reprogram RAM-ROM slot function with the new banner and the offset from the beginning of the ROM image that should be updated. Now this plugin example is only rewriting the ROM image that's currently held in the RP2350's SRAM. So when I reset the Commodore 64 using sys64736, that doesn't do a power cycle of one ROM. So whatever's been modified here remains in one ROM's RAM and will be served to the Commodore 64. This plugin doesn't change the ROM image on flash, but I think it's fairly easy to see how you'd extend this to actually erase a bit of flash and reprogram it in response to a particular sequence of addresses read by the host system. That's it. That's all that's required from this plugin to monitor any arbitrary sequence of address reads and then perform an action on the ROM image currently being served as a result of that. To complete the picture, this is the small machine code program that actually runs on a Commodore 64 that then triggers the ROM image to be updated on one ROM. The beginning of the program is actually just the load address and then the basic stub that launches the rest of the machine code program. Machine code starts down here. The very first thing it does, and this is really important because we are running the plugin on a kernel ROM on a Commodore 64, is disable the 6510 processor's interrupts. I'll come back and explain more about that in a sec. The next thing that the program does is it reads from each of the knock sequence addresses in turn. The kernel ROM of the Commodore 64 is located at E1000 hex. So it is reading the addresses from the beginning of E1000 hex that correspond to each of the characters of the knock sequence. It's not doing anything with the data that it receives, it's just throwing that away. The key is to read these addresses in sequence and nothing interspersed in between. It also just reads one final address, though this isn't used by the demo and can be ignored. Then the next thing that the plugin does is it constantly reads the last character in the C64's banner in the kernel ROM image, the banner that's being updated by one ROM, and waits for it to change to the expected new value. Now this is going to be very, very quick from the Commodore 64's perspective because the RP2350 microcontroller runs so much faster than the C64. It might happen in a cycle or two as far as the 6510 is concerned. And then once the banner has been updated, it re-enables interrupts again, and then this final stage is just printing out the kernel modified string on the screen. That's why the program ends up being 78 bytes long, because it really doesn't need to do very much. Just coming back to the interrupts. So the Commodore 64 uses interrupts for things like keyboard detection and keeping the Jiffy timer running internally. If an interrupt fires while we're triggering this knock sequence, then this program will be suspended midway through reading this sequence of addresses, say after these three. Some other kernel addresses will be read because the processor is going to look up the interrupt vector from the kernel ROM and then jump to some kernel ROM code to run as part of the interrupt routine. And then eventually, when all that's happened, it's going to return to this program and continue where it left off. From One ROM's perspective, obviously that's no good. It can't detect the knock sequence if it's going to be interspersed with other address reads. There are some other ways to handle a One ROM plugin doing knock detection while running on the system's kernel ROM, but we'll talk about those in a future video. I hope you found that video interesting and useful. If you have any other ideas for the sorts of things you might be able to implement as One ROM plugins, please do stick them down in the comments below, or join me on the new Discord server, link in the description. If you're interested in buying your own One ROMs, you can see sellers at this link. All of the software and hardware design files are open source, so you can have your own One ROMs fabbed and assembled by sellers like JLC PCB. Not sponsored by JLC, it's just who I use to have my boards assembled. I have my own thoughts about where I'm going to take One ROM plugins next, so if you're interested in finding out what that is, please consider subscribing and sticking around for the next video. Till then, rock on.